So I go into the Rolodex, and there he is, one of my favorites. So we go to the Vaqueros Cafe and Cantina hotline to bring in, not only does he host the Big Audio Nightmare, not only does he host the Mid-Atlantic Championship podcast, he also has the wrestling news. And we'll have to ask him about that here in a second. He is also on weekdays on Wrestling Observer Live and with Brian Alvarez. And I've said it so many times. I'll say it again. He is the voice of reason for that very fine program. It is Mike Sempervive. Follow him on Twitter at Sempervive. Semp, how are you, man?
I cannot complain, Stu. You're a man of culture and good sense. I appreciate you as always. Love being back on here as always. I know there's a lot of topics that we could get into. You know, I don't know if football season's going on right now. I'm trying to avoid it myself, being an Auburn and Notre Dame apologist. But, we can get to that a little later on.
I got you. Believe me, I understand. Being in the heart of Longhorn country, being on the flagship radio station for the Texas Longhorns, we know it all too well. So we'll get to that later. All right, Mike. Let's start off with WWE, and I got to ask. This is the question that's probably been burning, the Twitterverse and everything. So I got to ask you: are you the White Rabbit?
I am not the White Rabbit, although I got to admit. And I don't want to say, look, kids, I'm telling you, especially on those college campuses, be aware of what you're ingesting and everything. But I got to be honest, there have been some times in my life that I may have taken something that made me smaller and then maybe something that made me larger. But all this feeding of heads that's going on now, they got to be very careful with this, because ultimately, does this look like it's leading towards Bray Wyatt with all these things like the Wyndham Hotel in Corbin, Kentucky, and this, that, and the third? Of course it is. But you better be careful, and you better offer a little bit better of a payoff, I think, as you go through this stuff, or people are going to lose interest and just wait until they find out that he appears on Raw, SmackDown, or wherever it is.
You know, look, I'll tip my hat to him for the teases, and we're going on almost a week and a half of these White Rabbit teases and the QR codes and all this good stuff. And the wisdom seems to point to Bray Wyatt. I can't think of anybody else that it could be. I mean, I'm sure there's a possibility or two. I know there was a smattering of talk that it could be Edge again, but that got dispelled when Edge showed up on Raw. When you say that, the payoff better be, worth the effort. How much longer do you think this should go before we see the reveal?
That's hard to say, because if you can make it entertaining, if there are Easter eggs you can drop in the background, because they've done this now with Triple H being in charge, like with the Dexter Loomis stuff, where a car was flipped upside down, and it's like, well, was that Dexter? Oh, wait, that may have been Braun Strowman when he debuted. So there's, I think, ways to make this kind of entertaining, but you got to make it, I think, you got to give a little bit of juice in the glass off that squeeze for people, not just leading them to a Google thing of a pink rabbit that used to be in Italy and stuff like that. You can do that, but I think you need to give them a little bit more of something on the show to kind of build the drama, and maybe they're doing that. I mean, let's just and this is fantasy booking, but let's just say Nikki ASH. She loses that match to Candice LeRae. She takes off the mask. When was she at her best in WWE? It's when she was going crazy as a nut with what was the group name?
Sanity.
Yes, with Eric Young and all those guys. I mean, She was great. Nikki Cross. And that's what killed me about the deal with Alexa. It's like you got her and Alexa together, and it's like the one who's supposed to be the crazy one who would be better in this role, I think. You're going with the opposite direction, and that's another thing. Alexa is still holding the doll, all that sort of stuff. So I think there's ways you can do some things on the show where you can drag it out a little bit, but we got Extreme Rules, Philadelphia, maybe something there. The thing is, you better get it cranking on something for that show. And maybe this is the thing, because even though we've got a couple of matches announced, and even though Drew, I think, and Karrion Kross did a good job on Friday, there's no buzz for that show because you've got Crown Jewel and we've announced War Games, coming up for Survivor Series. So that may be a good time, and around that time for TV purposes, maybe that's the best way to go. At least in my mind right now, that might be it. But I think you got to get to, humping a little bit on, again, giving some people a little bit more meat to bite into each time out.
And that's something we've seen recently with these, for lack of a better term, late builds to the premium live events, pay-per-views, whatever you want to call them. And it's no different. Like you mentioned, Extreme Rules, we're about a week and a half away. Right now, I think we know 3 matches so far. You got Drew and Karrion strap match. You got Seth Rollins and Matt Riddle in the fight pit, and you got Bianca Belair and Bayley for the title in a ladder match. Is this
just cause?
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Yeah. So, and as I said, we've seen this late build over and over again the last several months, even going back to when Vince was still there a little bit. So is this something on WWE's part of, they figured they don't have to worry about pay-per-view buys because it's on Peacock. So, you just stream it on Peacock. So is it a matter of WWE thinking we don't have to announce anything until a week or two out, or is it a lack? I don't really want to say it's a lack of long-term booking. Grant, we're talking 2 weeks, but give me your thoughts on these late builds to these premium events.
I don't like them, but I'm going to try to look at this in a positive light and go, okay, Crown Jewel is what it is, and you got Logan Paul and Roman Reigns, so you kind of don't have to wait. Crown Jewel, either people are going to watch it or they're absolutely not going to watch it. So to have a Roman Reigns Logan Paul match on that, perfect. Doesn't really mean anything outside of that universe anyway. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, they'll hype it up on Raw and everything. Look at the numbers we did, but what happens there really nobody cares. So that leads you to Extreme Rules. With the regime change, we know how Triple H booked NXT. It was very logical. And up until, really getting pushed into the deal against AEW, it was always a solid old school, sometimes too slow at times, moving TV show where it was very workmanlike and it moved you to the next one. And I'm looking and thinking in my mind, when it comes to War Games, I saw how Judgment Day was all over the show. And I liked on Raw, one thing I really liked on Raw was Judgment Day was all over the place. You had, they went after Ray. Ray was facing Seth. Seth is facing Riddle. Riddle just had a confrontation, or not a confrontation, but had a little conversation with Lashley that was kind of interesting. I liked a lot of that. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of hoping that they are, because obviously it's a gimmick pay-per-view. You've built yourself into again, we're having Bianca in a ladder match in the first match with Bayley for what? Other than it's Extreme Rules in Philadelphia. So that's why you're going to do that as the first match in that. So it doesn't really make any sense. But if you're looking at that pay-per-view in that way where, okay, we just got to get to here, and then we have Bray. We have a plan for whatever, or, whatever it's going to be, for across the board. When's Randy Orton coming back? When's Charlotte coming back? There are a lot of moving pieces there and a lot of things you can do where if they're kind of settling things right now and seeing where they want to go, that's what I'm hoping, at least. And that way, when we get to Survivor Series, we see a War Games that feels at least a little like the originals, where all of these feuds are kind of coming together at one time, unless you do something with the bloodline against somebody. I mean, in theory, you could do that too, but I don't think they're going to go in that direction. I have a feeling it's going to be a mix of 10 stars, maybe 8 stars, and 2 people you want to hype up. So, whoever it may be, but I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt for now, just because, again, Triple H has made small little moves, and if you look at his history with booking, he's not the old man. He's not going to one day wake up and go, this isn't what I want to do. He's got more of a long term, and he's got his guys that he wants to build up. And again, Gargano just got there. He likes him. We haven't really seen the best of Ciampa yet because he's been involved in this deal with The Miz. So we know that Triple H likes him and banks on him to put good matches on with people. Could he be involved in something else? So I'm holding out hope for right now, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, I totally agree. Let me ask this. It was kind of fun. We mentioned college football at the beginning. WWE apparently has reached some sort of licensing deal with the Southeastern Conference.
Yeah.
Which right now 14 teams in a year or two, depending on who you want to believe. Texas and Oklahoma will be part of that. They're now going to produce custom championship belts with all the different teams' logos. And we saw on ESPN College Game Day, the Raw Women's Champion, Bianca Belair, sporting the Tennessee belt because they were in Knoxville ahead of Tennessee versus Florida. And we know they've already, I think they already struck a deal with Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
Is this just shrewd business making? Let's get our look combined with the, for lack of a better term, legitimate sports entities.
Oh yeah. Look, we're in a generation now where these kids grow up. I mean, this is the ESPN era. I mean, I look at my kid is now, it blows me away. He's going to be, oh God, man, he's going to be 15 years old. All this kid knows is the video game era and the Twitch era and the sack chain and the title belt being given out. So it's like, this is a part of their culture. This is a part of how it is. And why not? Wrestling may not be as big as it ever is again, as it was back in the day, as far as percentage of people, from the 50s through the 70s that were wrestling fans. I think that era is gone. But as far as it's seeped into the sporting culture, I think it's always going to be there. And who doesn't like a belt? And again, and who likes shiny things? That's what it's all about. And it's one of those things where it's a great idea to me to go ahead and do that. It's cheap. We laugh at it as wrestling fans. It's like, look at these, pimping out the WWE belt. But you know what? The people go bad crap for it. So why not go ahead and do it? And the SEC, come on. I mean, to me, that's a natural fit. Now, I know Tony Khan's father, because all the tie-in to Northwestern, the first thing I'm going to do if I'm AEW is go, pardon me, Big Ten, pardon me, Fox, our partner that owns the Big Ten network. Boy, do we have an idea for you. You know what I mean? Where it's like, you can then get your belt on, some sort of Fox programming because you've got the rights to the Big Ten, and that might show up on ABC or wherever it is. It doesn't hurt. It's a goofy, fun thing. And even if the announcers don't mention it, when people see that WWE logo, for the most part, they know what it is. And if they don't, nobody looks at a belt and goes, well, that's a boxing belt. They all think, when everybody sees a belt, they always think pro wrestling now. So I'm all for that sort of thing. I'm great with it. And look, Texas is still the number one generating revenue. Oklahoma is right up there. Alabama. I mean, forget about the fact that it's a natural fit anyway, pro wrestling in the South and all that sort of stuff. But like, it just with the teams that you're now associated with too, it's like, again, it's nice to have a license with Major League Baseball. It's nice to have a license with, and again, I'm biased, the number one college football, again, your NFL's minor leagues right there. And in fact, I'm pretty sure, again, sometimes Alabama can beat some of the teams in the NFL. Georgia, I'm pretty damn sure can beat some of the teams in the NFL right now. Yeah. So it's like, to me, it's a great move. To me, it's a no-brainer.
Absolutely. Look, I'll be honest, in a year or two after Texas makes the move, I'm not a big fan of belts, but I may have to buy a Texas Longhorn WWE Championship belt. So
and $499.99. That was the thing too. Reading the news this morning, and it's like at Fanatics and the WWE shop, and it's like, man, people, if you got it, people will throw $500 on that thing. And how many? Again, it's just, to me, it's crazy. But you ride that horse till it dies.
Absolutely. We saw on SmackDown that Roman Reigns finally made Sami Zayn the official honorary Uce, and they a big deal. And then and then Sammy and Solo Sikoa go to Raw, and they beat up on they'll beat up on AJ Styles. And it's, you hear that crowd. That crowd is, they're going nuts for Sammy. That turn is coming. And again, we've been talking about that slow build. That turn when, the bloodline finally decides, oh, we don't need Sammy. That turn is going to be so magical at that moment, because then you'll have, get Sammy and Kevin together, or get Sammy and name your favorite wrestler together and go battle the bloodline. That's I think that's one piece of what we have seen over the last several weeks about what WWE is looking like now.
Best thing in pro wrestling, all of pro wrestling by leaps and bounds, is Roman Reigns and this storyline that's going on now. And you notice how no one's talking about the fact that Roman doesn't have any competition anymore, at least for right now. Nobody's saying a damn word about that because they don't care about that. They just want to see them go out there and perform and go back and forth and talk. That's it. And this whole thing has been built up beautifully. How the whole deal with Roman Reigns turning into the character he is now was bumping heads with Jay. And Jay is the one who's looking at Sammy going, I know. And you bring Solo Sikoa up, and you got Jimmy as the, the crown, the clown prince here, the guy who likes to hang out with Sammy, and Paul Heyman just sitting back watching all of this. It's just fabulous. And I don't know if Paul Heyman deserves all of the credit for it. I'm sure a lot of people have their hands in it, but this has been fantastic. And however you decide to go ahead, and whenever you decide to go ahead and pull the trigger on this, I mean, to me, the obvious thing is Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens against the Usos for those tag team titles. And this is one of those things because of the people involved and the talent involved and the sheer numbers of people that are involved on the bloodline side, which means you always got to have almost an equal number somehow tied in on the other side of things. This is something that can go on to WrestleMania. And if you're going to have The Rock come back and it's him and Roman Reigns, well, you have all of these other stories about the bloodline and the family now. Does Sami Zayn do something that costs Solo Sikoa something? So then it's like Jay and Solo are really pissed at Sammy, and then there's Jimmy. And then you have the match, and is that the time where you just sit back and you go out there and it's like, yep, as soon as Sammy takes a step, Jimmy nails him? There's a zillion ways that the fantasy booked this thing out, and because of the people involved, it's great. So to me, I'm not fantasy booking it out too much. I'm just sitting back and watching because everybody has played their position. To me, I don't know how this could be any better right now, and how the anticipation that they're building for that eventual turn. I mean, this is outstanding. And look at the amount of money Sammy's going to make off that T-shirt, for heaven's sake. So kudos to him.
Absolutely. I agree. Yeah, I wanted to ask you, because you just mentioned like WrestleMania, and we started hearing the whispers again about how either it's the USA Network and Fox or whatever. There are those that think they need to split up the world titles again, that we don't want Roman Reigns holding both titles. Now, the scenario I have in my mind is Royal Rumble winner, who, okay, I might be a little biased because the name was born in Austin, but hey, have Cody win the Rumble. Cody have Roman do both nights of WrestleMania, but he defends one belt each. So does Roman versus Cody for the world title, Roman versus Rock for the Universal title. Is that too logical, or is that too simple?
Does he lose them both? To me,
I would say no. He loses the world title, keeps the Universal title.
So lose to Cody, beat Rock.
Yeah. Because Cody, and you go back to that promo that Cody cut about wanting to hand his father that world title. So have Cody say, no, I want that belt. I want the belt that Nature Boy Buddy Rogers held, and Bruno San Martino and Hulk Hogan and Bret Hitman Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin and all the whole line. He wants that belt, and then let Roman defend the Universal title against Rock and have him come away with it.
That makes the most sense to me because number one, bottom line, no matter what you do, you can't put Cody in the main event at WrestleMania and have him lose. To me, you can't do that. He's got to accomplish his goal, even if you beat him 2 weeks later. Although, again, Vince is gone, so they wouldn't probably be doing something like that. They want these things. They obviously want these titles to mean more now because of the reigns that people are on and all that other stuff. So, at least that's what I'm led to believe. So, that's a great idea because then he still beats The Rock. You have that. And even if he loses to The Rock, okay. Well, then in that case, Rock relinquishes the belt. We have a tournament. We have something going on to lead towards whatever it's going to be. What's a backlash? We got the speed bump that comes before it and backlash that comes after it. So you do the WrestleMania backlash show a couple weeks later. You can have the tournament for it there. You can fill up some TV time there at a time where sometimes there is a post WrestleMania malaise. Obviously, the weekend that although we didn't see it the last couple of years, usually that Monday after is huge. It wasn't the last, again, but we were also down to the nubs when it came to hardest of hardcore fans that stuck through them. It's a lot different now. So I think they're going to get a huge increase once Royal Rumble season rolls around, once the NFL goes away, once all that happens, and we're into kind of the long stretch of the NBA and college basketball and hockey. I think that's where they're going to really make out. And I think they're going to get a hell of a lot of attention in the first part of the year. So you can absolutely do something like that. To me, I stick with one champion. I have Cody win both belts first night or whatever you want to do and have him, Roman and The Rock the next night, even have Cody defend the belts against somebody. That would be fine with me. I don't, you can differentiate those shows and you can give something in my opinion and in my eyes and in my head to Fox and into USA that makes the shows different, that gives them something that they can say, this is what we're getting out of the money we're giving them, but still make sure that all your top talent is actually on those shows. That's what the U.S. title is for. That's what the Intercontinental title is for. You can have stories that are really well done that can appear on both shows and still have Roman and Cody and Seth and on down the line, your top guys all actually be on both shows.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, don't forget WrestleMania season starts with the Royal Rumble January 28th, just down I-35 in San Antonio at the Alamo Dome. The home of those mighty UTSA Roadrunners, the Fighting Jeff Trailers. Let's switch to AEW for a moment. And I guess although it feels like as the weeks go on, they're missed less, but there's still this overhanging cloud of the namesake of the promotion, All Elite Wrestling. The Elite still persona non grata, still not there. So let's go the extreme. Give me the percentage odd that Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks decide, you know what? Screw this. I'm going to go Stanford. I'm going to say 10%. Is that too high?
I think that's too high. Because I think the first step, if that were to be the case, and I don't think it will be the case, don't get me wrong, I don't think they're going anywhere. But let's say, poof, you magically get a release from your contract. Where are you going to go? Kenny's going to Japan because New Japan, and look, you have a situation still over there with his really good friend Kota Ibushi, who I don't know. We have not heard too much reporting in a couple of months on Kota Ibushi and his mental state, his physical state, which is really the most, again, the most important thing that matters is his mental state. But as far as what we're going to talk about, his physical state has been in question, and him not being confident and being able to come back. Some of the same things we heard from Kenny Omega, some of the same things we hear from a lot of athletes as they get older of like this, there's really a doubt here. Can I look the same? Can I keep up? All that sort of stuff. So I think Kenny Omega would go back to Japan first. The Young Bucks, I don't see any benefit for them to go there, even short term, even if we're going to give you the belts in the Garden. Even with Vince gone, no. Adam Cole goes back, different story. This person, that person, different story. Cody, completely different story. To me, the Young Bucks don't have to go there. You know where they go? I think they go home. And I think they show up at PWG, and I think they do what they want to do. And they go and they work this indie and that, and they just be them. And I think that, to me, their legacy was built on doing everything themselves. And if they get into the Hall of Fame or the Wrestling Observer newsletter or anybody else's for that matter, they truly did do it on their own terms. They were one of the only ones to have Bischoff pissed off at him, Vince pissed off at him, Russo pissed off at him because he hated him in TNA. I mean, they literally did it all themselves. And whether you like them or don't like their style or them personally or any of that sort of stuff, I mean, they're a pro wrestling success story through and through, and they did it their damn selves and got their merch and did all that sort of stuff. So they're the same way. Go to New Japan, go or wherever it is you want to go, DDT, wherever it is. And I think that's what they do. I think they do that. Kenny Omega, I think, has a better chance to go to WWE, and I think even that is, there ain't no way.
Yeah, I agree. And again, this is just playing what if. This is total fantasy. No, I agree with you. I don't think they're going anywhere. It does concern me that we have not heard word one on TV about why they're gone. They're just gone. They're not mentioning them. They don't mention their names. They don't say anything. It's just poof. Like they're that empty hole of AEW history. And and it's funny. I was listening to you and Brian today on Wrestling Observer Live, and I like the point about, look, say something at the beginning of the show. Have Tony there in front of the backdrop and say, due to whatever, Young Bucks and Kenny Omega are gone or whatever, or suspended, just leave it at that, and that's it. All you have to do is just a 30-second address it, boom, let it go. But no, they're just as if they just didn't exist, which I find kind of odd.
They also sometimes believe that everybody who's watching their show knows everything that's going on. And if I didn't have to say anything about it, what's going on, and we're going to go ahead and strip these belts now, and now it's time for the show. I get that. I think in some ways they hurt themselves more when it comes to like the Miros of the world. Like, say why he was on TV for a couple weeks. Like, he's going to film a movie. He's hurt. He's whatever it is. Like, because they do way too much of that. But I think as time goes on, I think, you don't have to beat anybody over the head with it, but you just do mention that because of the ongoing investigation or something like that. But then again, I don't know. I don't know if this point, because you haven't done it, do you really just want to go ahead and do it now? Or do you just want to go ahead and wait until this thing comes out? And I know there's a lot of fans that are driving themselves nuts. It's like, guys, have you ever been, again, and thank God if you haven't been, if you're not privy to understanding how a lot of these things work when it comes to lawyers and corporate and HR and this and that and a lot of moving pieces, these things move slow for a reason. And it is what it is. We're going to know what happens, and we're going to have everything that shakes out. Believe me, everybody's going to know about the same time when everything starts to get shaken.
Yeah. I get that. something that my usual co-host Justin Smash Simmons, he's pointed out the last few weeks. So, for instance, we had Chris Jericho beat Claudio Castagnoli to win the Ring of Honor World Title, and my co-host keeps saying, "But what does that mean?" And it kind of leads to that bigger discussion of, we've been saying it for a few weeks now. There are too many titles in AEW, because you also have the Ring of Honor titles and we know, Tony Khan keeps saying he's having great discussions with Warner Brothers Discovery about the future of Ring of Honor on TV or whatever. It seems like he's been saying that for the last 6 months.
Hey, he's a promoter.
Do what?
He's a promoter.
He's a promoter. That's right. And while, while I appreciate the legacy of Ring of Honor, Kerry Silkin is a dear friend, and I love him to death. And what he did to keep that company afloat until he sold it to Sinclair, and then what they did, it's wonderful. And yes, and on the surface, yes, Chris Jericho, you think that dastardly, Chris Jericho winning it without honor. But there is part of me that kind of agrees with Justin. That's going, yeah, but so what? There's these titles are without a promotion for all, for all intentions. Give me your thoughts on the abundance of championships between AEW and Ring of Honor.
There's too many. And you're talking about a guy that when I was a little kid, I loved, and we opened up back Inside Wrestling at the Roll Call of Champions. I used to love, because I was such a wrestling geek and a fan, and we had so many syndicated TV shows. Like, I would pop for the Central States title when Crockett bought it, and all of a sudden it's Superstar Bill Dundee, and Sam Houston's got that one, and you still got Wahoo's winning the national title, and Nikita's got the U.S. title, and Arn's got it. I liked it. Looking back, what did a lot of them mean? Especially as it rolled along, and you were into when they bought Florida, and what the UWF title didn't mean any. And it's like, you can make a lot mean something, but it's still, too many is too many. And when you have Sammy and Ty have the AAA mixed tag titles, and you have all these IWGP, and it's like, people, yes, a lot of their fan base is the hardest of the hardcore, and they're more open wrestling fans. WWE fans, a lot of them are WWE fans. There's a lot of NFL fans that don't watch college, but a lot of AEW fans, they're watching WWE. They're watching, and not only that, they're watching Progress, and they at least know names in CMLL or this place or that place. So it's not the end of the world, but it's a bunch of alphabet soup in there. And even in their own promotion, I mean, what does the All-Atlantic title mean? And there's going to be a time where it means something, because you're always going to have somebody who wins a belt, and you're going to hit on a story in a feud, and it's going to be cool. Ultimo Dragon and Dean Malenko. But then if it's Prince Iaukea and whoever for that time, then, you don't have it, and it's just another belt. So they do have too many, to me. They absolutely do. And I don't know where that comes from with Ring of Honor. Maybe that's what Friday night becomes, because Rampage ain't doing the trick. But Ring of Honor and Impact suffer from the fact that there was so much damage done to those names. And with Ring of Honor, it wasn't as much damage as it was for TNA and Impact, as it is. It was always just what it was, and only got to a certain level. And there's always this followed by this. And the last couple of years, everything went wrong leading into the pandemic. Brody King, multiple injuries. You have backstage nonsense. So they're still not getting real funding and what they need from Sinclair. Ba-boom, 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 ba-boom. It was like one thing after another, and just And the worst part is when you look back, it's like those last, like somebody's going to discover it in like 15 years and go, my God, Bandito, the opportunities they gave people of color, the opportunities they gave luchadors like Roosh and guys like that to be a main part of that show because that's what they had to do. And Hunter Johnson Delirious, I think, did a lot of it just a lot of it just didn't pop. And I think stuck with Pat Hands way too often. And I think, was again was partly responsible for some of this stuff, but some of the stuff was out of his control and he did the best that he could. So, but the bottom line is what is Ring of Honor? It's a great tape library. It's great. It's one of those things that when AEW starts their streaming service, you're going to want to see the ROH archives. You know what I mean? Because all these guys, Punk and on down the line, all the people that were there, the footage is there. So to me, if he can make something out of it, God bless, but it's going to be a rough road to hoe. And is Ring of Honor being a strong puppet, independent third a good thing? Will they be predatory against the GCW? Will they be predatory against the West Coast Pro or an AAW? I mean, AEW in Chicago right now gets beaten to death because AEW is up there constantly. They have Warrior that has exploded up there. It's like, would it, even if ROH becomes a thing, yeah, it's good for guys if they get jobs, they get contracts, the guys like the Briscoes, guys, young guys on the come up, that could be a good place to get funneled into, but like that could be their NXT. Maybe that's what, you want to look at it as, but as far as seeing the pure title on Rampage or Dynamite, nah.
Yeah,
Although,
you're
again,
right.
if you're looking for TV, though, Chris Jericho is the guy you want to have it on because he's Chris Jericho. Everybody knows him for something, a book, Dancing with the Stars, this, that, and the third. So, in a way, I understand why they did put it on him.
Yeah, I get you. Speaking of Rampage, we saw something that I just, it brought out the kid in me. Sting and Darby Allin versus Brody King and Buddy Matthews. They're going back and forth, and Buddy Matthews has Sting in the chair and he's cuffed. And then he's got that bat. He raises it up. Lights go out. The music hits. And by God, here comes the Great Muta. And he's, does the turn, spews into Matthews. Sting hits him with the Scorpion Death Drop, 1, 2, 3. And then we see that rivalry almost 40 years in existence, and Sting and Muta in a wrestling ring in 2022. I mean, I know you can appreciate this, knowing your historical knowledge and all your perspective, but man, that was, even here, hearing the spoilers, I still had to watch it Friday night. Now, yeah, I had to wait till after high school football, but that was first thing I did was put on Rampage just to see that moment.
If you're a person of a certain age, I don't care. They talk about when Jim Crockett Promotions sold to Turner in 1989. People will tell you about they didn't make any money. They brought in George Scott. They did. The wrestling was really good, but forget about the but. The wrestling was really good. Right from Jump Street, right from Steamboat jumping and throwing everything askew and being the mystery partner for Eddie Gilbert against Ric Flair and Barry Windham. And then you had the Flair Steamboat matches. And that led you in to the JTEX Corporation and the Great Muta and Terry Funk and Gary Hart. All people I loved. A gimmick with Muta I loved. He was perfect. He was amazing. He was fresh. He was new. He, and then later on after that, Too Cold Scorpio was the next guy that gave me that, oh my God, what is this guy doing? Feeling that Muta did. The handspring elbow that was so crisp. The backbreaker. The moonsault. His flying through the ropes, the topes, just absolutely amazing. And Ric Flair and Sting, the guy I watched from the UWF. I love that guy. And you got Ric Flair and you got Muta messing with Eddie Gilbert, who I loved, and he's misting Missy, and who didn't love Missy, and the Steiners were. It was so great. I loved that era. So to see Keiji Muto, the Great Muta, come out there and save Sting, I had a feeling we were going to see Sting and Muta together, and we are in Japan. But I was wondering if and when we were going to see Muta one last time here in the States, and we do. For as much as I have disliked his run in Noah as a person of power, and as much as I rolled my eyes when he was in Power at All Japan and being out there wrestling and winning matches against guys he shouldn't. And I know he has a big name value. He's one of the only guys in Japan with that kind of name. But to me, he wasn't doing a good job putting over a guy in Noah and Keno or Kiyomiya or a lot of that stuff. I got frustrations with it. But when I think about Keiji Muto, the legend, is I think about where we are in his career and the fact that it's almost over, and we're going to see him in January. We'll see him at the Dome. I think we're going to see him in February for sure in that last match that I believe is now going to involve Sting. I mean, it's going to be the end of an era, but how beautiful that was that these guys are still and they ain't healthy. We know Sting's neck and all that stuff, even though he's flying around like a maniac. And
Mhm.
Keiji Muta, that's how he really moves. He's got no hips, he's got no knees. He can still do that amazing dragon screw leg whip out of nowhere. Nobody ever did it like him. Nobody does it like him. How he's able to turn it on to do that, I will never know. But God bless. I mean, they are at least happy and they're alive. And to see that embrace, I mean, again, as you mentioned, damn near 40 years now it's been. And I was there at the Bash in Baltimore and that brawl that took place afterwards. I will never forget it. I will always love that era. I love those guys. Love Sting, love Muta. The Great Muta is the greatest to me Japanese wrestler to ever come to the States. Not the greatest Japanese wrestler of all time, but when you look at, to me, we're past the era of Baba. You can say Kabuki. I mean, he had a lot of impact, especially down there. I would completely understand if somebody said him because Muta was like the son of that. But those two guys, Masa Saito, who was a completely different kind of character, and Tajiri, who obviously took the mist again. Yeah, I know a lot of mist people hated that, but like Kabuki, Muta, and Tajiri, they were all great with it. So I don't care how stereotypical it was. They weren't throwing salt, they were blowing mist. That was cool. So,
That was cool.
so it's like those to me, they're the greatest Japanese wrestlers to ever step foot on American soil and do what they were doing. Obviously, it's a little bit different situation when you look at legacy in Japan and all that sort of stuff. But as far as American fans go, to me, those are the guys.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Mike, tell everybody about the wrestling news.
Oh man, yeah, the wrestling news. We kicked that off, and it is a production of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, and it is a cooperation of gentlemen who really love news, who really love listening to news radio, who really love sports updates at the top of the hour, and we are all also, for the most part, really East Coast. So, like, you get up, you jump on the subway, you jump on the metro, you got 10, 15, 20 minutes, you got a 20-minute walk, go get somewhere, and you don't have time to listen to, Dave and Brian for damn near an hour. You don't have time to listen to, this person or that person. You're going to listen to them a little later on down the line, but the wrestling news is here to give you everything what you need. There is no opinion on it. There is no speculation. There's no conjecture. It is just reading all of the top wrestling news of the day from around the world, whether it be Mexico, Japan, Europe, TV ratings, injuries, personnel moves, management issues, sponsorships, no matter what it is. We have subscriptions to everybody everywhere, from Sports Business Journal to the Wall Street Journal to Fightful Select to everywhere. And we are going to get all of the news that we can, and we are going to deliver it to you between 8 and 20 minutes every single morning. Not a whole lot of news going on. We got a little bit happening, maybe only about 8, 9 minutes long. Usually they average around, 10 in that case. Today we had a hell of a lot going on. 19 minutes and 30 seconds on that podcast, but he got you everything you needed to know. Everything that happens on the wrestling, you fall asleep during Raw, we got you covered. We have audio of the shows. We have audios of interviews that guys do that you may have missed somewhere. So we just give you everything you need in one tight little package that you can either listen to. I'm not going to turn this. on Amazon, just say Alexa, because she'd go off right now, play the Wrestling News podcast. Make sure you add podcast at the end, or go to the wrestlingnews.com. We have a YouTube page as well, too, for it. So however you take in your media, you can listen to the Wrestling News. And I'd like to say, give us a shot. Let us see what you think. We started the show because we felt as though it really needed to fill a void that was out there. And I didn't want to step on anybody's toes. I want to be able to work with everybody. We give credit where credit is due. We have broken news in the time that we have started this podcast. We started it at a very opportune time because All Out was taking place. We started it right before that, and we had hemmed and hawed about the date. And Brian Last, who's the executive producer, said, we're going to do it here. It ended up being the right move because we had all the fallout from All Out, and we had some exclusive stuff that we ended up reporting on and what we still have. So we're building up this operation. There is nothing to do with Dave Meltzer or Jim Cornette, because I know a lot of people say, Sempervive and Last together. What is that about? Well, Brian's the executive producer of the show. The show is, for the most part, Brian Solomon, who wrote the great book on the Sheik and who has worked for WWE magazines for a long time and he is so great, and he's such a good guy. He really is the Dick Cavett of professional wrestling, and he is the news director. I am the supervising producer. I do a lot of the script work. Obviously, I read the news every day. Lou Kippelman's a producer, and we're just working together to grow, doing a news division that doesn't have any bias, any headaches, any clickbait, no nonsense, having to rely on any of that sort of stuff. It's just us doing the news. So I'm sorry that was a really long-winded way to say it, but I have been really excited about this. The response to it has been fantastic. For anything chart numbers mean, we have done very, very well that way. So, and it's growing every day. So I'm very thankful for it. If please give it a shot, let us know what you think about it. But again, between 8 and 20 minutes every day, you're going to get what you need from the world of professional wrestling to at least get you started, get you out the door, and get you going. Always by 8 o'clock in the morning, every single day. Sunday tends to be maybe a little bit later because a lot of stuff in Japan, again, because we're covering Japanese wrestling as well, too. All the top stories that you need to know from around the world are going to be covered, as well as breaking news audio during the day if needed.
Sounds like a great subscribe. Wrestling news at thewrestlingnews.com, right, Mike?
It is. It's thewrestlingnews.com. You can find it there on Twitter at Wrestling News AV, on Facebook, also Wrestling News AV. And again, if you're using Google or Apple or Spotify or any of that sort of stuff, look up the Wrestling News Podcast.
Sounds great. He is also the host of Big Audio Nightmare and Mid-Atlantic Championship Podcast. He is Mike Sempervive. Also catch him weekdays on Wrestling Observer Live with Brian Alvarez. Follow him on Twitter at Sempervive Mike. I always feel a little bit smarter when I talk to you, man. I appreciate that. I appreciate you.
You know what it is? It's because you're a little high because I sucked all the damn oxygen out of the room, and that's what it is. So you lost a little bit there. I apologize. I apologize to the people again too. You think I'm sitting in a cave right now with like candles on or something like that? I just need to get one of those big old oval the light gimmicks there because I swear to God, there's light in this room right now. It really is. I'm not brooding with Malachi.
All right, man. Hey, all the best to you.
Hey, Deion Sanders, head coach of Auburn. See, let me tell you something. Texas goes ahead and joins the SEC. We're going to be in the same division together with a lot of teams that are going to be kicking our ass. So at least we're going to have Deion Sanders. At least, I guess that's what I'm hoping. I don't even know anymore.
Hey, we'll see. We'll see. Appreciate it, Mike. Talk to you soon.
Yes, sir.